Good morning. This is Erin with the Department of Medicaid. It's not quite 10 o'clock yet, and we're still clearing the waiting room, so we'll give it just a moment before we get started.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Erin, do you know how many of our TAC members are here? I see Miranda. Good to see you, Miranda.
Currently, I have you and Miranda.
Okay.
Right as you logged in, I was letting everybody know we were still clearing the waiting room and we'd give it a moment.
All right. Thank you.
I
Yeah, we'll
have
get
been
that.
trying to email with Brenda. I think she's having issues with the link again, so I am working on that.
Okay. Thank you. We will need 4 TAC members to have a quorum. So hopefully we can get Brenda to join us and at least one other member.
If you'd like, Emily, I can keep an eye out if anyone else joins.
Okay. Mm. I'm just thinking through the purpose of this meeting. This was a meeting requested by Arthur to further discuss our recommendations for the Beneficiary Advisory Council. And I'd hate to start that conversation without him. Miranda, do you have any thoughts about this? Of course, I did just email Miranda, you and every other member of the consumer TAC with the recommendations that I wanted to propose today. We could still talk through those without 2 other TAC members. We can't, vote on those and make those official recommendations, but we can still discuss them.
Um, sure, we could still discuss them. May not be as long of a meeting.
Well, and I appreciate everyone joining us today. This is a special called meeting of the Consumer Rights and Client Needs TAC, and it's specifically to discuss the Beneficiary Advisory Council, the development of that council, the design of the Beneficiary Advisory Council, and what kind of recommendations we wanted to put forward. So I will go ahead and share, Miranda, unless you have something else that you'd like to also raise for the meeting. I can go ahead and share the recommendations that I came up with after our last conversation. I thought we had a good presentation and discussion, a good presentation from the Department for Medicaid Services, a good discussion about, the relationship of the consumer TAC to the BAC, and, and with the experience that we have as a consumer TAC, working with people who have lived experience as well as with advocates, I think we have a lot of good experience to draw on as we think about how the BAC should be designed and supported by Medicaid. So I took all of that kind of into consideration as I was putting together recommendations. The first recommendation would be that the BAC conduct meetings that are open to the public at least 4 times a year, but not be required to follow public meeting laws to allow flexibility for planning meetings and technical assistance. And I'm proposing that recommendation because we've had the experience of being told that, the consumer TAC members cannot meet and have discussions that are not public, and in essentially, the format that we are now. And I think for beneficiaries and family members, there will be times that they want to have, discussions offline and be able to just, really learn about an issue before they conduct a meeting. So that's my first recommendation. The second recommendation would be that the BAC and MAC should adopt a formal policy on accessibility and accommodations to support meaningful participation. And these accommodations should include, but not be limited to, language services, personal assistance. And I was going to actually ask other members of the TAC if we should include anything else there, or just say, and other types of supports. So Miranda, you may have thoughts there. I know language services and personal assistance have come up quite a bit.
Right. Hi,
We
Melanie.
could say, and other types of supports as needed, or we could be, oh, hey, Melanie, good to see you here.
Sorry, Emily, I was like sending the link to the email because I saw Melanie had responded asking for it.
I was
okay.
madly searching, trying to find the link, so I found it. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
At this point, we need one more TAC member to join us, and if Brenda is, just working on getting the link straightened out, do you think that we should wait, Erin?
She just emailed me back, and she's saying without a meeting ID on her app, she can't attend. And I've sent her everything that I have, so I'm not sure, but I will keep trying to assist her and get her into the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at the invite that you sent. I don't see an ID, but I do see a password. Do you think that's what she needs?
I'm not positive. I forwarded her the link and copy and pasted everything I have.
It might be the conference
I
code.
may have to get into the Zoom link, maybe, which screen sharing I currently can't do. So I'm not positive. I know she's had some issues in the past but has been able to join recently. So I'll keep working on it.
Okay.
Would it,
Well,
would it be
and I know I kind
acceptable
of
to
jumped.
her? Sorry,
about that.
guys. Would it be acceptable to her or you all to have her phone in rather than on the Zoom call itself?
It is perfectly acceptable to me, but public meeting rules do require that if we are to vote and conduct
Okay, understand. Yep,
official
I'm sorry.
business, she has
yep,
to be on
yep.
video. We have to be able to
Understand.
see her when we take that vote. But for participation alone, of course, my preference would be that she's at least able to listen in and speak. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
And if we end up not having a quorum, then, the recommendations that we discussed today, I believe can still be considered by the Department for Medicaid Services. They just won't be official recommendations that go through the MAC. And maybe rather than reading through what I was, trying to think about how to handle this if we don't have a quorum, but I think we should probably take a step back. We may end up getting a fourth member to join. And if someone from DMS, I know that Deputy Commissioner Veronica Judy Cecil is here, and other folks as well. If you all could just maybe give us a little bit of an update on where things are with the development and the design of the back, that might be the best thing to do before we proceed to discussing recommendations. And I know that, you know, there were 2 public forums. There was a survey that you all put out to stakeholders. It would be great to know, you know, what information you've collected so far, what you're doing with that information, and where you are in the process of actually drafting legislation.
Good morning. This is Veronica Judy Cecil, Senior Deputy Commissioner at Medicaid. We are still distilling the information into a format that we'd like to release publicly, and that is our intent. Is we want to provide the key takeaways from the survey and from the findings. But we're not in a position to do that yet. We did have over 600, and sorry, I wasn't really prepared with all the information, but we did have over 600 responses. And we appreciated the fact that people were really thoughtful about, you know, giving us specific recommendations. And so we have collected those. The legislation is in draft and being further revised based on the input. I'm not in a position to share that yet because it is draft. But I'm certain that, you know, once that's in a good place, we'll certainly want to share those with folks. All that's kind of happening also, I think, very quickly with the governor's office, and making sure that we can find a sponsor and get that filed in the short session. So we'll do our best to try to keep folks updated on that. It may be happening faster than we can do that, but once we get confirmations and a final document, you know, we will get that out to folks. So I don't really have specific information about that feedback. Our consultant was still sort of putting it in a easy to read format for us, so that we could go through all of the raw comments, and then they're trying again to organize those in key takeaways.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that update. And yeah, it would be great to see the draft legislation once it's in a place to share. Any questions, Miranda or Melanie?
I was just so excited. I mean, 600 people responding.
That's fantastic.
That is powerful. And I'm so I know it's probably a lot to distill and make into some sense of, a tabulation of everything. But that just shows me that there's so many people that truly want to have a voice. And I love that. I just think that's so powerful. I sent it out on
over the holidays.
Yes,
Right,
and
yeah.
the snow.
Yes. Well, and I should say that we had a really great representation across all the various interested parties. We had really great
Awesome.
member input. And that was exciting for us because that's really who we are here to serve. And so to see that members actually took the opportunity to provide us that input, I think will make a more successful framework.
Well, I sent it out on all the groups that I had access to, and I said, please share your thoughts and concerns. This is a wonderful opportunity. So I'm hopeful that there you got representation from a wide range of individuals, and usually if it's coming from my lens, it's going to probably have a focus on either self-advocates, caregivers of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or just disabilities in general. So thank you for being so welcoming for receiving those comments. It means a lot.
Well, thank you all for sharing it. It certainly made it a more, I think, a more robust response. So thank you.
Yeah, and Melanie, I was saying right before you hopped on that I had emailed, if you haven't seen your email from
Oh,
just
I'm trying to find it now. I just thought I
about
saw.
10 a.m., I had emailed TAC members with my proposed recommendations for today. It was a little lengthy, and I thought it would be easier for you to follow along if it was just in front of you on the screen, especially since this is a short meeting. So just be aware that those are in your email.
Okay.
And if we're ready at this point, I can talk through those proposed recommendations. Of course, I'd want to hear recommendations that you all would like to bring forward as well. But I was really hoping that Arthur would be able to join us this morning because I know that he wanted to also kind of continue this conversation. I was thinking maybe we could buy some time and he would hop on here. But I don't see him yet.
You're stalling. Is that what you're saying? Oh,
Um,
no, I love that.
Emily, I try to pull the email up on the
Oh,
screen.
great.
Can you see it? It's
I
kind
can
of
see it. It's
small.
very small.
Okay.
But yeah, it's absolutely fine for you to share that. I will still read through them if that's okay. Does anybody have any other preference for how we do this? Okay. So I'm just going to go back to that first recommendation that you missed, Melanie, which
Okay.
is that the BAC should conduct meetings that are open to the public at least 4 times a year, but not be required to follow public meeting laws to allow flexibility for planning meetings and technical assistance. And today's meeting is actually a really good example. Public meeting laws means that people have to be on
Yeah.
camera, and we have to have that quorum in order to conduct business. Whereas that wouldn't be a requirement if we weren't following those public meeting rules. My second recommendation is that the BAC and MAC should adopt a formal policy on accessibility and accommodations to support meaningful participation. These accommodations should include, but not be limited to, language services, personal assistance, and I just have a ... here. I wanted to ask for input from you all about any additional accommodations that we should list out. We could also just say, and other supports as needed.
Can I jump in and say
Yes,
something?
please. Mhm.
Those are awesome, and I agree 150% with those. I would like to make sure that we also include, because we have a large group of individuals that are nonverbal or non-speaking, and so having a category, a means for them to be to be considered, and that would either be through their augmentative assistance technology device, or like how Arthur has a wonderful staff member that helps to interpret what he is saying. But especially when somebody that has no ability to communicate and is non-speaking and nonverbal, to make sure that we have a path for them to be able to participate, whether it be through augmentative assistance or a caregiver in sharing that information on with the group.
So personal
make sense?
assistance, I think could address part of that. Would communication supports be?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll add communication supports.
Would it be necessary to add assistive devices, or not? Just communication supports is enough?
It's just, that's just like a vehicle, because some people use kind of like what Arthur uses is, I think the gentleman writes it out and or has an alphabet or something there for him to be able to point, and the augmentative assistance devices are basically something that falls along those same lines, but they're a little bit more technologically advanced, so and we're starting to see more individuals have that use that kind of device to be able to communicate.
Yeah, this would be a good question in some ways for Arthur. I don't think that there's necessarily a wrong way to do this. In some ways, you don't want to be too prescriptive.
Yeah.
I think we could get as specific as we want to. But we could also leave it relatively broad with the expectation that when we say, meaningful assistance and other supports as needed, that it kind of captures those things. But I did add in communication supports. We could also say supports and resources as needed.
Okay.
If that seems like it could capture things like devices.
I like
Okay. All right. So I've updated that, and I can, once we've had more of a discussion about these, we can read through
Yeah.
them again well, we may not vote, we'll see. But for the record, the next recommendation is that DMS should work with the consumer tech to create a back nomination / application form and process for selecting back members.
I think that's excellent. That's great.
Great. The fourth is that DMS should provide dedicated staff support with one or more DMS policy staff assigned to support back members with individual technical assistance between meetings.
That's awesome.
And y'all stop me if you want to discuss any of these. The fifth is that the back should have staggered terms of a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 6 years to allow members to develop and share expertise. For back members selected to serve on the MAC, their term should be extended. The sixth one is that DMS should ensure that back members are offered reimbursement for expenses and compensation / stipends for their time, modeled after standard boards and commissions. So we know that compensation and stipends are already something that Kentucky does quite regularly in state government, but that is not something that we've done historically with the MAC and tax. The seventh one is that the back should include a minimum of 25 members, with 7 of those members nominated by the existing organizations that make up the consumer TAC. And then I listed out those organizations. They're the ones that have nominated us to serve on the TAC at this time. And I won't read them all, but they're there. The eighth would be that the additional 18 members of the back should include a diverse range of representation based on, and I listed out geography, age, race and ethnicity, sex and gender, LGBTQ+, disability, language, physical, behavioral, and oral health needs. And very open to adding other categories here. Those are the ones that came to my mind.
Those are good.
Any thoughts on that?
That's a wonderful, I mean, it's so comprehensive. I just, from reading that, I don't see anyone that would have been left out. Because you've got aging, is aging on there too?
I have age as a category, but not.
Okay.
Yeah. So just diversity and age.
Yeah, okay. And just to go back to the other one about, is there an ability to reimburse? I'm happy to do things as a volunteer, but is there even anything attached that would allow for individuals to participate and be compensated for their time?
I think that's a good question for DMS.
Okay.
I do believe that the state has boards and commissions in which they do compensate. They, reimburse for expenses, they compensate for time, but that's just not been the case in the MAC and tax.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. We would have to research it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is a practice that's happening much more, much more regularly now than it has in the past. There's been, I think, more appreciation and sort of attention to the fact that we need to, value people's time, especially whenever it's someone who may be making trade-offs with their time. and, having to decide if they are able to really commit to something like this. And this would be one way to, incentivize that, but also just really make sure that people feel like their time is valued. And one thing we don't want to do is make that a mandatory thing where people are paid and it could
Yeah.
put them over the limit of being eligible for Medicaid or some other program that they're participating in. But to offer compensation or a stipend, I think would be useful. And there have been some models, even I know with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, maybe not Medicaid specifically, where nonprofits have, actually paid the stipend or been the ones to compensate members for their participation. So Miranda, thank you for that. I was just looking in the comments. Okay, I can make that correction
I thought
there.
it'd be easier to write it out.
Yeah. I took the list directly from our website though, or the web page, the Consumer TAC web page. So it may be that also needs to be, I mean, it's not our organizations. It's the organization that
And the
nominated.
networks.
Nominated me, yeah.
Well, there
So-
isn't an organization called Kentucky Legal Services.
Yeah,
Board.
that's the statute. That's what the statute says. So we can't change what the statute says without a statutory change. So we put, I think what we tried to do is find the organization most,
Yeah,
um,
it fits that
yep.
definition. Yeah. So what I think I'll do then is where it says Kentucky, yes, I'll do oh gosh, what did I do there? I'll just add in this case, Office of Legal Services Programs as a addition, maybe in parentheses.
It's not a huge change, but yeah, just so you have the actual legal name of the organization for future incorporation into whatever it needs to be incorporated into.
Okay. Yeah, but I think, yeah, it's one of those things that we don't think about very often. And when I revisit it, I'm always a little bit rusty on exactly how some of those decisions were made and how these things were put into statute. So as far as the recommendations go, does this seem like something that we want to put forward, even if it's not official through voting? Are these in good shape? Do you all have other thoughts, additional recommendations that you'd like to make?
No, I think they're very comprehensive, and thank you for taking the time for completing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Between the last meeting and then completing the survey, participating in the public forum, it gave me some time to really think through what our recommendations should be. So it's been a good process. Aaron, would it be helpful for you or for the court reporter for me to repeat these again? Or can I just take the edits that I've made and put them in another email so that you have the final recommendations?
Veronica, I'm going to defer to you on that one.
Sorry, I was trying to get
With the
to put
No,
my
it's-
video and audio back on. We can note in the record that you're going to be sending
Okay.
the recommendations. That's fine.
Just
'Cause
so that I don't have to
you
put
can't
people
vote
through
on
that
them.
again.
Yeah, I mean, you can't vote on them. So
Exactly.
but we still would like to get that feedback as part of our collection of feedback for the new back.
Okay, that's great. That's what I'll
Thank you,
plan on
Veronica.
doing.
Thank you.
And as far as our representation at the next MAC meeting, I actually don't have that meeting date in front of me. Aaron, do you know when it is?
It's
I
the
usually
23rd.
The 23rd of January.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right? I will be
Yes, ma'am.
traveling out of the country at that time. Miranda, I should have asked you this in advance. I just hadn't thought of it. But I think you are technically vice chair. Would you be able to attend that meeting and take the recommendations from our December meeting to the January MAC meeting.
Remind me, is it at 10 in the morning? What's the time?
9:30 to 12:30.
9:30 to 12:30. Yes.
And
I can do that.
generally, the tax
yeah.
report out around 11 or after. Would you say that's about right, Erin?
Ish, depending on how quickly we move through some of the topics at the top.
Mm.
Yeah. I was
But
going to
not for
say
the
about
first hour and a
mid-meeting,
half at the
so
very least. I would
not
really appreciate it if you could do that,
typically.
Miranda, and I apologize that I didn't think about that sooner.
Yeah, I can do it.
Thank you.
Miranda, I will get you the invite, so it's on your calendar.
Thank you, Erin.
Perfect. The meeting schedule that we have for 2025 is here on the agenda, and I think everyone has the calendar invites from Erin. I will say that depending on decisions made about the back, it could be that this changes if the back ends up kind of assuming what the TAC has been doing and replacing that. And it may be that as, you know, current consumer TAC members, we end up participating in the back, either officially or unofficially on their meeting schedule. So just keep that in mind. But for now, I would say keep these dates on your calendar until we know more about what the back is going to look like and when those meetings will be happening. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time. I haven't looked outside to see if the snow started here yet, but please stay safe and warm and have a good weekend. Bye, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
you.
Take care.
Be safe.